Detroit Homecoming has been made possible by the William Davidson Foundation, stimulating innovation, developing leadership, sustaining valuable programming, and tackling critical problems in 4 focus areas: Jewish life, economic vitality, cultural and civic vitality, and education. And by the Ford Foundation. We believe in the inherent dignity of all people and are guided by a vision of social justice, a world in which all individuals, communities, and peoples work toward the protection and full expression of their human rights.
Right there is fine. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. I know you've been sitting a long time, but perk up because you got the best session coming up right now. So
that's right.
So we're really happy to be here and to talk about education in Detroit. I have the great privilege of serving as the president and the CEO of the Skillman Foundation. And the Skillman Foundation is all about expanding opportunities for children. And as you know, the most important opportunity any child must have is a high quality education. And as we talk about our city, as we talk about the struggles it's gone through, and as we talk about the things and the opportunities that we're going to see coming into the future, we have to realize a simple fact, that the future of Detroit is inextricably tied to the future of children. This city is their birthright. And if we really want them to be successors to this city, then we have to make sure that they have a high quality education and that they're prepared to lead us into the future. Not just lead us into this present and take it into the future, but to really create a new future. And so when we think about this need for innovation and leadership, there is no better introduction to me than this panel. So we have 3 panelists here who have been education innovators as well as hometown heroes, in my opinion. So I just want you to join me in welcoming Danielle Jackson, who has been a teacher, a principal, and now she serves as Chief Academic Officer with the University Prep System. So we're really great to have you, Danielle. Bob Thompson, who is, how would I describe Bob? You know, the best attribute about Bob is that he has a lovely wife by the name of Ellen. And lucky for him and lucky for us, Ellen, I think, has probably been his greatest inspiration. Bob and Ellen have invested over $122 million in charter schools in this city.
Can you say that number again, please?
$122 million. In addition to that investment, Bob has had a long history as an entrepreneur in roads and road paving. One of the things that I love about Bob, and I'll just share this quick story about him, is that when he sold his business many years ago, most people remember that he said, I'm going to take half of the proceeds of my business and I'm going to give it to charity. But what most people do not remember is he said, and I'm going to take the majority of the other half of the proceeds and I'm going to give it to my employees. This is a really good man who is doing great things, and so I just am grateful to have him on the stage. And then, last but not least, is Jaylen Rose. Some of you may have heard of him. Jaylen, as you all know, is a hometown guy. He grew up here in Detroit, Northwest Detroit, went to Southwestern, went to U of M. Where's the Go Blue? Y'all don't know the Go Blue? All right, thank you. Go Blue went on to the NBA and is now an ESPN commentator. Jaylen has worn Detroit pride, sang about it even on television. He has always shown that he's a lover of this city. So why don't we just jump right into the questions if we might. So Bob, I'm curious, what has attracted you to education? So I know at one point you were a teacher. I think you lasted all of 6 weeks. So why, after having this successful career, did you and Ellen, and maybe it might be inspired by Ellen, why did you decide to focus on education?
Well, when we sold our business, we had the money that we didn't know quite where to do with it. So I tried to think back in my own life. I was born on a small farm in the Depression era, and my mother wanted me to go to college no matter where I went and what I studied. And I'm dyslexic, so I had a little problem with all that, but I did. I went to college, and it changed my life. I would not be here today if I hadn't done that. And I think about that. So then we got, what are we going to do after we sold the business, and where's the toughest place to change people's lives, and education certainly does do that. I'm so convinced of that. Detroit, Michigan. So we started these charters in Detroit, and it's been a great, great success, mainly due to people like Danielle. It's just a great opportunity to change lives, and there's many, many stories of lives that have been changed by the charter schools and other schools, education.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And so, Danielle, you have a great opportunity to work with Bob in his network of schools. Can you talk about some of the interesting attributes that University Prep offers for their students? And what has this experience provided for you as an educator to be more innovative when you serve students in Detroit?
Yes, thank you. Well, definitely Mr. Thompson and I connect around this idea that education is a game changer for students. And so we work really hard. First of all, he has high expectations of us. And so it isn't just a gift, it comes along with some high expectations around this idea of 90-90. And what we have the privilege of being able to do is we make adjustments because we're educating human beings. They aren't just numbers on a page. And so we've had to think about what does it look like to build strong community for our students where they're known well, where we understand the experiences of trauma that some of our students may have, and how do we move those barriers out of the way and provide support socially and emotionally while providing the academic experience that reflects who they are so that they can have access to real, meaningful pathways when they graduate.
Great, thank you. Jaylen, you left U of M and went into the MBA, but what many people don't know is that you finished your degree. It was really important to you. And I have always admired when you talk about the most important 8 years of a young person's life. So can you tell us about what you think those most important 8 years are and how that inspired your efforts to create a school named after you, the Jaylen Rose Leadership Academy in Northwest Detroit?
Absolutely. Being an athlete, I always took pride in obviously trying to achieve the goals that I set out to accomplish. You know, win a state championship, go to college, make it to the NBA, but also took pride in my education. And I noticed the dynamics of being an athlete. When you score 25 points, that's the headline. But nobody ever talks about the fact that I took pride in making the honor roll. At Michigan, I made the dean's list. That was never in any of the publications per se. And it made me start to realize the 4 years in high school and the 4 years that you could or should be in college become the most important years of a young person's life, because that's when you start puberty and you start making decisions and you get exposed to sex, drugs, violence, and gangs. And you can make poor decisions in that 8-year period that can derail all of your goals and dreams. But also, it works in reverse. You can sacrifice and do what you need to do in those 8 years, and it changes the trajectory of your life. So I always talk to young people about, ask the adults in your family or in your neighborhood where their dreams went awry. Usually it's between 14 and 22 years old. And so that's why I wanted to influence high school students initially, because I felt like they get overlooked in the dynamics of education, especially in public education, because the same funding goes to an 11th grader that goes to a 3rd grader. And anybody in here knows that somebody in the 3rd grade doesn't have the same needs or issues as somebody in high school. So we wanted to go the absolute toughest route. Start a high school, no feeder school. We weren't part of the network. And when I did a ribbon cutting ceremony, there were 0 sponsors behind me. And so for us to continue to progress the way we did and now be to the point where we're 428 kids in high school currently. We have approximately 300 kids currently in colleges and universities, community colleges, trade school, or military. We graduated a couple of students 4 years from college, and now we have some 5-year college students. So right now we're influencing around 700 students.
Wow. One of the unique things about the Jaylen Rose Leadership Academy, and I think if enter a learner, exit a leader. And one of the things that you all have done is decided to stay with kids all the way through. And so can you just talk a little bit about what does it take? What kind of resources does it take and supports does it take to actually get a kid not just to and through high school, but to get them to and through college?
Absolutely. Detroit Public Schools are already underfunded. Unfortunately, in our country, the quality of your education is defined by your zip code. And so the goal is to have a college success team on a shoestring budget already that are going to monitor the needs of the kids while they're in high school, give them the support that they need to get ready for college, and still provide that level of support while they're in college. So we do college visits, we do phone calls, we keep up with their grades, their attendance. We give them the same support that we would give them like they were in high school. Because normally what happens, even your top performing high schools, you can graduate the students, but on graduation day, everybody throws their hat in the air and says congratulations. But we know a high school diploma doesn't get you the job that it used to. And so they need that level of support, those extra 4 years that I described that I feel like are really important. So we continue to give them that level of support, and it's worked out really well.
Thank you. Bob, when you first started opening your schools, I think you were serving about 500 students, and now you're serving about 5,000 students. And one of the demands that Bob put on the people who would work with him in school was this notion of 90-90. So I wonder, Bob, if you could talk a little bit about what that 90-90 means and how do you feel about this trajectory of starting with just a handful of students and now having such a large impact on the future of Detroit?
Well, the 90-90 came from, we met a fellow, Doug Ross, who had a 6th, 7th, 8th grade. He needed a high school, and so he said, I said, what do you do if you have a high school? He said, I'll graduate 90% of the 9th graders, and 90% of those that graduate will be qualified to go to 2 or 4 year colleges or the military. So we built him a high school. That's how it started, and of course, once you do that, then you're in the game. And so then we called it 90-90 because it's important to me that you just don't graduate these kids. They have to have the qualities to go forward. Then we built the feeder schools. And now we have, 3 K-12 systems? And like you said, almost 5,000 kids. And it's mostly people, if you don't have the right people like Danielle, you can write checks and do all that stuff. And there's examples of that in the United States, right? Where people have done that and it doesn't go anywhere. You got to have the right people in the seats, and you got to grow it slow, and you got to grow it right, and you make mistakes. But if you have the right people at the top, you'll get there.
Thank you. So Danielle, one of the things I think has been really interesting is that in order to get kids to college, you have to build a college-going culture inside of the school. So I want you to talk to that, like what are the attributes, what are the kind of things that you need? And this is something that I actually remember learning at Jalen's school when I was listening to, we had gotten all of these, this was one of the very first years, we'd gotten all of these young people enrolled into college, and then we found out that some of them actually didn't go. Because the break between ending high school and actually enrolling in college, if they didn't have anybody who ever had that experience, they didn't know what to do. And so they just kind of stayed home until literally, I think Jaylen sent some of the staff to go get the kids, drive them up to college, and make sure that they were enrolled. But that's the kind of love that you have to give and the kind of support you have to give the students. Can you talk more about that?
Absolutely. We call that the summer melt. There's the aspiration and then there's the reality, right? So we really start in kindergarten. You know, we make sure that every teacher on their door tells their story. Here's where I went to school. Here's a little bit about me. Every crew, we organize our students in crews. There's a 1 to 16 to 18 ratio in crews, and each crew is named by a college. They learn about that college. We create opportunities for the adults in the school to talk about their college experiences. And as they matriculate through the K-12 experience, in K-5, they go visit campus together as a field trip. By middle school, we're starting to gear them towards the different types of colleges, the type of experiences that you might need to look for. And that's also when they start to write their story. This is what I think I want to do next. And this is what I know about myself that makes that make sense to me. And then as they go into high school, of course, it gets a little bit more intense. Now we need to start narrowing the focus. Where do you really see yourself? And I had the pleasure on Tuesday to sit down and have lunch with 8 of our seniors at one of our high schools. And a young lady by the name of Isis was courageous enough to say, I am super anxious about graduating. And she said, you know, you guys really instill in us that college is an important step, but I feel like there's something else for me that may not align to that idea, and I don't know what to do with that. And so this conversation ensued amongst these students that really, I think, elevates this post-secondary planning. The realities for some of our families, we've had students turn down a tuition-based scholarship because room and board was out of their reach. And so really sitting down student by student and crafting a written plan, talking to them over the summer, making sure they follow through, and then being a beacon for them as they go through. Our alum knows that they can call us. We're going to call them. We're on Facebook, social media, how you doing? And our commitment is to be with them through the long haul, even post graduating from college. You know, we want them to come back and give back.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. So both Jaylen and Bob, you have supported students in college. And I think, Jaylen, that's how you actually started your philanthropy. And I often think about, like, one of the first times we met, and I said, I was like, you know, I'm not really into celebrities and sports stars talking about they're going to do charity because they're focused more on show than impact. And you said, I absolutely agree. I'm all about impact. And then I think we were bonded at that moment. Can you talk a little bit about what you've done to help kids make it through college, through some of your scholarships, and just your commitment in general to making, you're not a fly-by-night kind of guy. You walk those halls, you know those kids' names. If you go up to the school and he's there, he might even pull out different reports about, like, whether or not they've been truant or not. Like, he is into this school. Can you just talk a little bit about both your scholarships and why it's so important for you to be so attached to these young people in this school and not just to use your name?
Absolutely. Initially, I didn't want the school to be named after me, as you know. I sent a list to the founding team of all of the people they could name the school after. It was like Martin Luther King, Frederick Douglass. I had like some notables. And then I didn't get a response back, but I didn't realize that they were sending messages that I wasn't included. And then they all came back to me, was like, well, we think you should name the school after you. And I was like, why? I ain't like Martin Luther King or nothing. Like, we should name it after somebody that's great. And they were like, if you name it after you, we know you're going to own it. I was like, all right, y'all got me there. That was a good one. That was a good one. And so as somebody that was fortunate enough, again, to graduate from high school and graduate from college, on our budget, it doesn't necessarily call for you to have a college success team. We're an open enrollment school. We don't test students in. We don't test students out. We serve special needs students. And so once they graduate from high school, and we have an 11-month model. We call July summer session. You fail a class, summer school. You pass your classes, We promise us a collegiate experience or an internship. And so a lot of our young people, while they're trying to be educated, need to work to take care of to support the family. And I knew that dynamic being a college student, and it's tenfold with a lot of these scholars. So my goal, is anybody that I can get to influence in any way, shape, or form since 2011. If they've heard the word Detroit, if they've seen Michigan on the map, I've asked them for support. And so influencing young people in college, Jeep stepped up. They were a big-time donor and helping with some scholarship funds. We have multiple donors to help with scholarship funds. And so now we just try to give those students what they need, because the first semester of your freshman year, usually that's the toughest time, because that's when a lot of students actually drop out. You start missing home. It seems like work. You don't have the money. You're on campus. You're the minority in a lot of situations where you used to be the majority in high school. So it's a lot of factors that we now raise and write those resources to make sure we get them the support that they need.
Great, thank you. Now, Bob, you have done something pretty amazing, you and Ellen, which is the Working Family Scholarship. Will you tell us about that work? Because I think that you are making sure that young people who are struggling financially, that they can actually make it all the way through college. So you want to share a little bit about the program?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say what Jaylen is doing is the important part of all this work, and that's what Danielle and her team has to do, and I know do it, because without the money doesn't get you there. The money, you have to have the money, but you got to have the people. And Jaylen, I commend you on what you just said, because it's terrific. That's what it takes, and all of us should hear that. You just don't write a check, go home. You make sure somebody's managing that, and we are fortunate enough to have a team like Danielle to do that. We first of all, we put $20 million in scholarships we paid already. Most of the, half of that or better was Detroit kids. A couple hundred of them went to college, and those kids we're really proud of. The Working Family Scholarship was my wife's idea, because she feels that, people have money can send their kids to college, but if you don't have money, how do you do it? So anybody who makes less than $65,000 a year, and one of the two parents is working, we help. And we have, try to get my numbers right here, we have a couple $100 million set aside, and we hope in the future to graduate 9,500 kids with that money, because we get matching money out of the colleges and other people to do it. It's a great program, and we think it's a gap that's missing in our society. So we're trying to fill that gap.
Well, thank you, Bob. I want to just thank you on behalf of all of the families that you supported, either in Detroit schools or in colleges across the state. You really have set an example, and Jaylen, you too. I mean, I'm so grateful for the way that you have used your platform to bring attention to the school, to bring attention to Detroit. So there is so much to do still in the city, and one of the things that many times we talk a great deal about the challenges that exist in Detroit schools. And we very rarely actually talk about the successes or the change that's happening. There is a change afoot. I want you all to know we are seeing improvement in our charters. We are seeing improvement in our traditional Detroit Public Schools community district. The narrative and the actions are changing as a result of that. And so as we think about this, that we're on the upswing. We got a lot more swing to go. We do. But I'm curious from each of your perspectives, what do you see as the thing that we must do in Detroit to make sure that all of our children are successful? What is the one or two things that you feel like as a city we have to get behind and mobilize? And maybe even some of the expats who are in here today, what can they do to be able to support our children?
I would just like to say real quick that I believe what Mayor Duggan is doing or going to do with this bond issue of $250 million to tear down the vacant buildings is one of the biggest game changers in Detroit. You get that done, crime should reduce itself. It certainly did in New York with that kind of program. And you get crime under control, then the schools have a chance. And it will make a whole lot of difference when he gets that done. So that's the one thing I hope gets done, and that'll dribble down to everybody.
Great. Jaylen?
For me, I'll say resources, because what ends up happening is while you have the students in your building X amount of hours a day, at some point they go back home to the neighborhoods that, as you just alluded to, are crime-infested, drug-infested. Usually they may be the first person from their family to graduate from high school, if not attend college. So to constantly give them opportunities to not only see the world, and what I mean is just a level of exposure, like people that don't necessarily look like you, people that don't necessarily sound like you, visit college campuses, have internships, like create a level of support that they're going to need, because that's, if you think about it, that's a long time. And usually when you're not the breadwinner of your situation, it's like you got to try to have some support, and then you're trying to help your parent or your guardian. And so those level of resources and exposure, I think, are paramount for our young people.
Thank you. So as it was stated, money doesn't make change happen, but it surely does enable it, right? And so we have the people on this stage that are making change happen. And so if there are ways that anyone in the audience would like to support these schools, I'm sure they would be happy to have it, be it internships or mentorships or bringing programs into the schools or even contributing to their efforts to raise scholarship dollars for their young people after they leave high school. So will you join me in congratulating and thanking these great education innovators?
Ladies and gentlemen, Jim Hayes.